You won't believe what happened when a self-proclaimed HOA Karen tried to bully me into paying thousands of dollars for a homeowners association I was never even part of. It all started when I moved into my new home, tucked away in a quiet, well-kept neighborhood that, according to all the documents I signed, wasn't under any HOA authority. I did my research, triple-checked the deed, had my real estate agent confirm, and even spoke to the previous owner. Everything was clear: no HOA, no fees. No nonsense, or so I thought. A few weeks after settling in, I started getting strange letters taped to my door. At first, it was friendly reminders about lawn care. Then came fines, actual invoices, demands for dues. All signed by someone named Patricia, who, I'd later find out, was the self-appointed head of a nearby HOA that had absolutely no jurisdiction over my property. But she didn't care. Patricia, who I came to call the neighborhood's HOA Karen, was on a mission to bring the community up to standard. And apparently, that meant dragging in homes that were never part of the HOA in the first place. She showed up at my door one afternoon, clipboard in hand, demanding payment and threatening legal action. Her tone was sharp, her confidence over the top. But here's what she didn't know. I wasn't just a regular homeowner. Let's just say I've got a bit of professional experience when it comes to fraud, boundaries, and local regulations. I gave her one warning, calmly told her she was overstepping. But she smirked, waved her papers in my face, and told me I'd regret ignoring her rules. That's when I walked back inside, pulled something out of my drawer, and returned to the door. I didn't say a word. I just showed her the badge. Her expression? Priceless. You could see it all hit at once: panic, confusion, the realization that she'd messed with the wrong person. But it doesn't end there. Because what happened next? Well, let's just say she wasn't the only one hiding something. Patricia stood there, frozen, eyes locked on my badge like it was some kind of ghost. For a second, she looked like she might argue, but then her whole body sort of wobbled, like her knees were about to give out. She didn't collapse completely, but she had to grab onto the porch rail for support. I stayed calm. I didn't need to say anything. That badge spoke louder than any threat she could throw at me. I could see it all happening behind her eyes: every phony letter she'd dropped off, every made-up fee she'd tried to collect, all crashing down on her in one heavy moment. She mumbled something about just doing her job and stumbled off my porch. But I knew this wasn't over. People like her don't give up that easily. What really got me, though, was how far she was willing to go with the whole HOA act. After that encounter, I started asking around the neighborhood just to get a better picture of who I was dealing with. That's when things got weird. One neighbor told me Patricia had only lived here a couple of years, but she'd somehow appointed herself president of an HOA that hadn't even existed for over a decade. Another neighbor, who had been around long enough to remember the original homeowners association, said it had been dissolved years ago due to lack of interest. No meetings, no board, nothing official. Yet Patricia had been printing out fake bylaws, making up dues, and even threatening elderly homeowners with liens on their properties. Most folks either paid her to avoid the headache or didn't know any better. The more I dug, the more I realized this wasn't just about me. She had created an entire illusion of authority, and for a while, she got away with it. But what bothered me most was that some people were scared of her, especially the retirees on the block, who didn't want to be caught up in legal stuff they didn't understand. I knew I had to dig deeper. Something didn't sit right. Why would someone go to such lengths for fake power? What was really driving her? And the bigger question was, she acting alone? Over the next few days, I kept a close eye on things. You'd think after seeing the badge, Patricia would back off, but instead, she doubled down. More letters started appearing on my neighbors' doors. this time stamped with a fake HOA legal department logo she clearly made on her home printer. She even started posting signs around the neighborhood, warning of fines for unauthorized landscaping and non-compliant paint colors. It was like she was trying to tighten her grip before anyone had the chance to push back. I decided it was time to quietly document everything. I took photos of her notices, recorded a few conversations with neighbors who were willing to talk, and even caught her on camera stuffing envelopes into people's mailbox, something she absolutely shouldn't have been doing. I also visited the county records office just to be sure. No HOA, nothing binding. No legal rights to collect dues or enforce rules. She was completely on her own, but pretending to run a whole organization. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. One of the older residents, Mr. Rowland, pulled me aside one morning while I was walking my dog. He said he appreciated what I was doing and warned me Patricia wasn't just some bored neighbor with a power trip. Oh, she had a past. He didn't know the full story, but he'd heard whispers that she'd been involved in something shady before. Moving here. Something involving a previous HOA board in another town that ended in a lawsuit. I asked him if anyone had looked into it, and he shook his head. People around here don't like trouble, he said. They'd rather pay than deal with a fight. That's when it hit me maybe this wasn't her first neighborhood. Maybe she'd done this before, somewhere else, and slipped through the cracks. The fake fees, the made-up rules, the scare tactics, it all felt too polished, too rehearsed. Like this was a script she'd used more than once, and yet there was still something off. I kept feeling like she wasn't working alone. Some of the signs had been posted in places she couldn't reach without help. Someone else was backing her or at least letting it happen. But who and why? Things escalated fast after that. I wasn't the only one getting suspicious anymore. A couple of neighbors, especially those who had been quietly paying Patricia's fake HOA dues for months, finally started speaking up. One woman, Mrs. Alvarez, said Patricia had threatened to report her to housing authorities because her garden gnome was non-compliant with HOA aesthetic standards. Another neighbor found a notice taped to their garage. Warning of a $200 fine for excessive bird feeder activity. It all sounded ridiculous because it was. But the intimidation was real behind the scenes. I kept collecting evidence. Every flyer, every warning notice, every fake invoice. I filed a quiet complaint with the local housing commission and shared some of the footage I'd recorded. But even then, I knew legal channels could take weeks, months, even and. Patricia was still out here pushing her narrative like she was some kind of neighborhood sheriff. Then one night, around 2 a.m., I caught movement on my security camera. A figure in a hoodie sneaking up to my front porch. The footage showed them slipping an envelope under my door. Inside, a handwritten note that said, "Stay out of this. You don't know what you're walking into." No name, no return address. Just that message, scribbled in shaky pen. That was the moment I knew I was getting close to something bigger than just one woman faking HOA authority. This wasn't just about money or power, it felt personal. Someone else was involved. Someone who didn't want their name tied to what Patricia had been doing. I went back through the footage and slowed it down. The person was shorter, heavier set, not Patricia. Someone else, and then came the final straw. The next morning, several neighbors woke up to find notices posted on their mailboxes saying there would be a mandatory community compliance inspection on Saturday, led by authorized HOA agents. That's when panic really started spreading. People were texting me, knocking on my door, asking what to do. But I stayed quiet, because I already had a plan. And if I was right about what was coming, then Saturday was going to change everything. Saturday arrived, and the entire street felt tense. Curtains were half-drawn, cars stayed parked, and people peeked through windows like something big was about to go down. By 9 a.m., Patricia showed up, clipboard in hand, dressed like she was running a city inspection. But she wasn't alone. Walking behind her was a man no one recognized, tall, wearing sunglasses, dressed like some kind of security contractor. He didn't say a word, just followed her up and down the street like muscle. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just some scare tactic anymore. She'd brought someone in to give the whole act more weight. But here's the twist. I recognized him, not by name, but by face. I'd seen him before on the footage from my security camera the night the anonymous warning was delivered. Same build, same walk, same black hoodie. So not only was he working with her, he was the one who tried to warn me off. That didn't make sense. Why would someone helping her also try to scare me into backing down? Unless he wasn't fully on board. Maybe he knew things had gone too far while they walked up to one of the houses. I slipped out the back and met up with two neighbors I'd looped in the night before. I showed them a printout of the security footage side by side with a still of the man walking beside Patricia. It was a match. That was enough to push one of them, Jamie, to speak up. She'd actually overheard Patricia talking to someone on the phone a few days earlier, saying, "We have to make it look legit this time, or it'll all blow up like the last place." Last place. Turns out, Patricia and this guy had pulled this same HOA CA.